Double Cross, written by James Patterson, and read by Peter J. Fernandez and Michael Stuhlbarg.
Prologue. In Your Honor.
At the time of his formal sentencing in Alexandria, Virginia for 11 known murders, the former FBI agent and pattern killer Kyle Craig, known as the Mastermind, was lectured and condescended to by U.S. District Judge Nina Wolfe. At least that's the way he took the judicial scolding, and he definitely took it personally, and very much to heart. Mr. Craig, you are, by any criteria I know, the most evil human being who has ever come before me in this courtroom, and some despicable characters have come. Craig interrupted. Thank you so very much, Judge Wolfe. I'm honored by your kind and I'm quite sure thoughtful words. Who wouldn't be pleased to be the best? Please continue. This is music to my ears. Judge Wolfe nodded calmly, then went on as if Craig hadn't spoken a word. In reparation for these unspeakable murders and repeated acts of torture, you are hereby sentenced to death. Until such sentence is carried out, you will spend the remainder of your life in a super-maximum security prison. Once there, you will be cut off from human contact as most of us know it. You will never see the sun again. Take him out of my sight. Very dramatic, Kyle Craig called to Judge Wolfe as he was escorted from the courtroom. But it's not going to happen that way. You've just given yourself a death sentence. I will see the sun again, and I'll see you, Judge Wolfe. You can bet on it. I'll see Alex Cross again. For sure I will see Alex Cross, and his charming family. You have my word on it, my solemn promise before all these witnesses, this pathetic audience of thrill-seekers and press hyenas, and all the rest of you who honor me with your presence today. You haven't seen the last of Kyle Craig. In the audience, among the thrill-seekers and press hyenas, was Alex Cross. He listened to his former friend's empty threats, and yet he couldn't help hoping that ADX Florence was as secure as it was supposed to be. 4 years to the day later, Kyle Craig was still being held, or perhaps smothered was the more apt description, in the maximum security prison in Florence, Colorado, about 90 miles from Denver. He hadn't seen the sun in all that time. He was cut off from most human contact. His anger was growing, blossoming, and that was a terrifying thing to consider. His fellow inmates included the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, Oklahoma City conspirator Terry Nichols, and Al-Qaeda terrorists Richard Reed and Zacarias Moussaoui. None of them had required much sunblock lately either. The prisoners were kept locked away in soundproof 7x12 concrete cells for 23 hours every day, completely isolated from anyone other than their lawyers and high-security guards. The solitary experience at ADX Florence had been compared to dying every single day. Even Kyle admitted that escaping from Florence was a daunting challenge, maybe impossible. In fact, none of the prisoners inside had ever succeeded, or even come close. Still, one could only hope, one could dream, one could plot and exercise the old imagination. One could most definitely plan a little revenge. His case was currently on appeal, and his lawyer from Denver, Mason Wainwright, visited once a week. This day, he arrived as he always did, promptly at 4 p.m. Mason Wainwright sported a long silver-gray ponytail, scuffed black cowboy boots with lifts, and a cowboy hat worn jauntily back on his head. He had on a buckskin jacket, a snakeskin belt, and large horn-rimmed glasses that gave him the appearance of a rather studious country and western singer. Or a country and western-loving college professor, take your pick. He seemed a curious choice as an attorney, but Kyle Craig had a reputation for brilliance, so the selection of Wainwright wasn't seriously questioned. Craig and the lawyer hugged when Wainwright arrived. As he usually did, Kyle whispered near the lawyer's ear, There's no videotaping permitted in this room? That rule is still in force? You're sure of it, Mr. Wainwright? There's no videotape, answered Wainwright. You have attorney-client privilege even in this pathetic hellhole. I'm sorry that I can't do more for you. I sincerely apologize for that. You know how I feel about you. I don't question your loyalty, Mason. Following the hug, Craig and the lawyer sat on opposite sides of a gray metal conference table, which was bolted securely to the concrete floor. So were the chairs. Kyle now asked the lawyer 8 specific questions, always the same questions, in session after session. He asked them rapidly, leaving no time for any answers by his attorney, who just sat there in respectful silence. That great consoler of mass-murdering prisoners, Truman Capote, once said that he was afraid of 2 things and 2 things only. So which of these is worse, betrayal or abandonment? Kyle Craig began, then went right to the next question. What was the very first thing you forced yourself not to cry over? And how old were you when it occurred? And then, tell me this, counselor, what is the average length of time it takes a drowning person to lose consciousness? Here's something I'm curious about. Do most murders take place indoors or out? Why is laughing at a funeral considered unacceptable, while crying at a wedding is not? Can you hear the sound of one hand clapping if all the flesh is removed from the hand? How many ways are there to skin a cat, if you wish it to remain alive through the entire process? And, oh yes, how are my Boston Red Sox doing? Then there was silence between Kyle and the lawyer. Occasionally the convicted murderer would ask a few more specifics, perhaps additional detail about the Red Sox or about the Yankees whom he despised, or about some interesting killer working on the outside whom the lawyer had informed him about. Then came another hug as Mason Wainwright was about to leave the cell. The lawyer whispered against Kyle's cheek. They're ready to go. The preparations are complete. There will be important doings in Washington, D.C. soon. There will be payback. We expect a large audience. All in your honor. Kyle Craig didn't say anything to this news, but he put his index fingers together and pressed them hard against the lawyer's skull. Very hard indeed, and he made an unmistakable impression that traveled instantly to Mason Wainwright's brain. The fingers were in the shape of a cross.
Part 1. All the World's a Stage. Chapter 1.
Washington, D.C. The first story, a thriller, involved an Iraqi soldier and a crime writer. This soldier was observing a 20-story luxury apartment building, and he was thinking, so this is how the rich and famous live. Stupidly at best, and very dangerously for sure. He began his checklist of possibilities for a break-in. The service entrance at the back of the super-luxury Riverwalk apartment building was rarely, if ever, used by the residents, or even by their sullen lackeys. More secluded than the main entry or the underground parking garage, it was also more vulnerable. A single reinforced door showed off no external hardware. The frame was wired on all sides. Any attempt at forced entry would trigger simultaneous alarms at the Riverwalk's main office and with dispatch at a private security firm based just a few blocks away. Static overhead cameras monitored all deliveries and other foot traffic during the day. Use of the entrance was forbidden after 7 p.m., when motion detectors were also engaged. None of this was a serious problem, the soldier believed. Actually, it was an advantage for him. Yusuf Qasim had been a captain for 12 years with the Mukhabarat under Saddam. He had a sixth sense about such things, anything to do with the illusion of security. Qasim could see what the Americans could not, that their love of technology made them complacent and blind to danger. His best way into the Riverwalk was also the easiest. Garbage was the answer. Qasim knew it was carried out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon without fail. American efficiency, so valued here, was another of the luxury building's vulnerabilities. Efficiency was predictability. Predictability was weakness.
Chapter 2.
Sure enough, at 4:34 p.m., the door to the service entrance opened from inside. A tall black lackey in stained green coveralls and a silver afro latched a chain from inside the door to a hook on the outside wall. His flatbed dolly, loaded with bulging plastic garbage bags, was too wide to negotiate the opening. The man moved slowly, lazily carrying 2 bags at a time to a pair of commercial dumpsters at the far end of a covered loading dock. This man is still a slave to the whites, Qasim thought to himself. And look at him, the pathetic shuffle, the downcast eyes. He knows it too. He hates his job and the terrible people in the Riverwalk building. Qasim watched closely, and he counted. 12 paces away from the door, 9 seconds to throw the garbage bags in, then back again. On the man's third trip, Qasim slipped by him unnoticed. And if his own cap and green coveralls weren't enough to fool the camera, it was no crucial matter. He'd be long gone by the time anyone came to investigate the security breach. He found the poorly lit service stairs easily enough. Qasim took the first flight cautiously, then ran up the next 3. Actually, the running released pent-up adrenaline, which was useful to get under control. On the 4th floor landing was an unused utility closet where he stashed the garment bag he had carried in, then continued up to 12. Less than 3.5 minutes after entering the luxury building, he stood at the front door to apartment 12F. He gauged his position relative to the peephole in the door. His finger hovered over the buzzer, a recessed white button in the painted brick. But he went no further than that. He didn't actually push the buzzer today. Without making a sound, he turned on his heels and left the way he had come. Minutes later, he was back out on the street, busy Connecticut Avenue. The drill, the rehearsal, had gone fairly well. There were no major issues, no surprises either. And now Qasim jostled along with the rush-hour pedestrian traffic. He was invisible here, just as unseen in this herd as he needed to be. He felt no impatience for the execution up on the 12th floor. Patience and impatience were irrelevant to him. Preparation, timing, completion, success, those were the things that mattered. When the time came, Yusef Qasim would be ready to do his part. And he would. One American at a time.
Chapter 3. I was out of police work, and had been for a while now. So far, that was okay with me. I was standing with my back against the kitchen door, sipping a mug of Nana's coffee, thinking that maybe it was something in the water, but all I knew was this. My 3 kids were growing up too fast. Blink of an eye stuff. And here's the thing. Either you can't stand to even think of your kids leaving home, or you can't wait. And I was definitely, firmly, in the former camp. My youngest, Alex Jr., Ali, was going to be a kindergartner now. He was a sharp little guy, too, who rarely, if ever, shut up, except when he knew you wanted to know something from him. His passions at the moment included Animal Planet's Most Extreme, the Washington Nationals baseball team, the Michael Jordan biography Salt in His Shoes, and anything to do with outer space, including a very strange TV show called Gigantor, with even stranger theme music that I couldn't get out of my head. Preteen Janny had begun trading in that twiggy body of hers for a set of starter curves. She was our resident artist and actress, and was taking painting classes through the Corcoran Art Reach program. And Damon, who had just passed the 6'1" mark, was looking forward to high school. So far, he didn't whoop and shout or trash talk, and seemed more generally aware of his surroundings than his peers were. Damon was even being recruited by a